You've probably heard about Islamic finance. It's this massive, multi-trillion-dollar global industry. But for a lot of people, how it actually works is still a bit of a mystery. See, it's all built on a foundation of ethical principles. But what keeps it all on track? What's its moral compass? Well, today, we're going inside the powerful and, yeah, pretty complex system of Sharia governance.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to lay down the foundation. Then we'll meet the actual people, the guardians who enforce the rules. After that, we'll get real and look at some of the cracks in the system. And from there, we'll check out the cool innovations designed to fix them. And finally, we'll see how it all ties together to build the one thing that matters most: trust.
All right, let's start at the very beginning. What in the world is Sharia governance? The easiest way to think about it is like this. It's the ethical operating system for an Islamic bank. It's the internal compass and the official rulebook all rolled into one. It guides literally every single transaction, every product, and every decision to make sure it's all aligned with core Islamic principles. You know, a system is only as good as the people running it, right? So who are the referees here? Who's making the tough calls and making sure the rules are actually being followed? Let's meet the key players. So the folks who sit on these boards, wow, they have a really unique skill set. You can't just be a banker, and you can't just be a scholar. You have to be a top-tier expert in both modern finance and Islamic law. Your personal reputation has to be rock solid because you're the one issuing fatwas, which are basically binding legal rulings that can make or break a deal. It's also pretty common for these scholars to sit on multiple boards at once, which is something we'll see gets a little complicated. But of course, no system designed by humans is ever going to be perfect. When you mix high-stakes finance, ancient law, and, people, challenges are going to pop up. So let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at some of the real-world cracks in this framework. And this brings us to a really crucial question. What happens when the guardians of the system, the experts themselves, start feeling the pressure? What happens when these ideals slam into the messy reality of the global financial market? And look, these aren't just abstract ideas. They have very real consequences. A board that isn't truly independent might just end up rubber stamping whatever management wants. And then there's this thing called fatwa shopping, where a bank might actually hunt for a scholar who will give them the answer they want to hear instead of the most correct one. Every single one of these issues can seriously damage the integrity of an institution. To protect against all that, the system has two main lines of defense. First, you have the Sharia review. Think of that like a regular, ongoing health checkup for the company. Then you have the Sharia audit. Now, this is more like a deep dive forensic investigation, looking back at past deals to make sure everything was done right. Both of them are absolutely critical to keeping the system accountable. Okay, so pointing out problems is one thing. Actually fixing them is another. So how is the industry innovating to build a stronger, more bulletproof framework for the future? Now this is a huge idea. It's a fundamental shift in thinking. It's moving away from a simple checklist like, did we follow rule A, B, and C? And starting to ask a much deeper question. Are we fulfilling the ultimate purpose, the ethical spirit of the law? It's about going beyond the letter of the law to really embrace its soul. And this is where things get really interesting, where tradition meets the future. There are now proposals to bring artificial intelligence into the governance process. But here's the key. The AI is just a tool. It does the initial analysis, but it's not the final judge. That ultimate ethical call still has to be made by a human expert, a qualified Islamic legal scholar. It's a really fascinating model for using tech to make us better, not to replace our wisdom. And there's no single right way to do this. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Just look at Malaysia and Indonesia. Malaysia has a very centralized, top-down system. The National Council makes a ruling and it's binding for everyone. But Indonesia takes a much more flexible, consultative approach. It just goes to show how different countries are tailoring these frameworks to fit their own unique cultures and economies. So we've looked at the rules, the players, the problems, and the potential fixes. But now it's time to zoom all the way out and ask the biggest question of all. Why does any of this actually matter? At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Good governance isn't just about following rules for the sake of it. It is the absolute bedrock that holds everything else up. It builds trust with customers and investors. It creates credibility for the entire industry. And that credibility helps create stability in a really important part of the global economy. So if there's one thing to take away, it's that this governance system is really the engine room of Islamic finance. It's not static, it's always evolving, facing new challenges, and innovating. And really, if you want to understand the future of ethical finance, not just in the Islamic world, but everywhere, you've got to understand how this works.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. This question isn't just about Islamic finance anymore. It's a question for the entire financial industry. This tension between timeless principles and groundbreaking technology, it isn't some problem we need to solve. It's actually the central, driving force that's going to shape a more transparent and ethical financial future for all of us.